Hello, this is Laura and welcome to the Learning Reading Hub. Today's video is all about the long A sound. A as in the name of the letter A. We'll cover the different spelling options that can be used to represent this sound in English. I'll give you many examples of words that contain this long A sound. I'll share with you the order I'd personally use to introduce the different spelling options there are for this sound. I'll share with you tips and tricks to teach them. I'll even tell you where to find, where to download a very comprehensive list of words that contain this long A sound, as well as some other cool resources. Okay, that's a lot. I think that by the end of this video, you'll be an expert on the long A sound. So without further ado, let's go start. In English, there are 9 different spelling options for the long A sound. I know, it sounds crazy, right? Don't worry, only 3 of them are the main ones. If you wish, the other spelling options are the exceptions. So let's start with the main ones. What's spelling option number 1? The most common spelling for the long A sound is the AI-AY pair. Some simple and very common words that have this spelling are mail, rain, pain, sail, tail, wait, made, snail, train, brain, chain, grain. Day, way, say, play, bay, ray, may, pay, stay. After going through these words, you have probably seen the rule that is going on here, or you may already know it. We use AI in the middle of words, rain, mail, main, and the AY spelling, day, pay, play, goes at the end of words or syllables. Why is this? Well, words in English in general do not finish with the letter I. This is a rule. I've even seen this letter called illegal letter at the end of words, and it's not the only one, by the way. So, what do we do if we can't use the letter I? We have to use another letter instead. Well, that's exactly what the letter Y is doing. That's the replacement. The letter Y is the most common replacement that we use instead of I at the end of words, okay? By the way, this is why you may have heard that the letter Y can be both a consonant and a vowel. As you can see here, the letter Y is clearly a vowel. On the other hand, it's generally considered a consonant when it is at the beginning of a word. Yellow, yes, yum. Anyway, I don't want to go off topic here, I don't want to digress. Let's come back to the AI-AY spelling option for the long A sound. Another important point to remember is that in compound words, the AY spelling is kept, even if it's not at the end of a word. Think of playdate or payday, for instance, okay? This is because the spelling is at the end of a syllable. Something to keep in mind for later on when we introduce more complicated words. Because think about it, in reality, compound words are formed by 2 independent words that kind of blend their meanings into a new word, but keep their original spellings. Okay, so we know the theory now, but how to go about teaching the AI-AY vowel themes? What I think is key here is helping our students see these 2 letters as a unit of sound rather than 2 separate letters with a sound each. Because that's exactly what's going on here. In proper terms, this is actually called a multi-letter phonogram. And there are many in English. Think of ch, sh, th, e, u, etc., etc. Okay, with these phonograms, our objective is for children to start to see them as a whole rather than as 2 separate letters. When you're first working with letter phonograms, maybe your child or student will aim to sound out each letter individually. This is very normal. That's actually the rule that applies to one sound, one letter correspondences, but we have to break that habit in words with vowel themes. So how are we going to get our children to see these 2 letters as a unit of sound, right? I'll share with you 3 simple tricks. Number 1, present words containing vowel themes like this to your children or students. What we're doing here is separating the different sounds or phonemes in these words. Number 2, underline or mark a I in a different color as a reminder that these two letters are friends and they team up to make a sound. Number 3, you can also give your children or your students a list of words or a very targeted passage and ask them to circle the AI, AY themes they can find. On top of this, and in general, this will apply to every single spelling option that we are going to cover here today. In general, children need a lot of exposure to words with the targeted spelling pattern to embed it for good in their memory. In other words, to achieve full automaticity. So one of the best strategies is to work with very targeted word lists containing lots of AI words one after the other. For instance, you can use this one, which is part of our phonics master list, link on the bio if interested, or you can use very targeted passages or very targeted phonics books with lots of AI words, or maybe a combination of all of these. Repetition is really important. Another principle I'd encourage you to follow is trying to make sure one's spelling is automated, at least as much as possible, in your child or student's memory before moving on to the next. Okay, moving on. Spelling option number 2, the magicy, the bossy, the magically. This has so many names, right? We find it in so many words as well, such as cake, make, lake, take, made, mate, tame, fame, name, cane. Okay, this is the second most common spelling option for the long A sound. However, I personally prefer to teach my kids this one first, that is before the one we've already covered, AI, AY. Why, you may be wondering? Well, I think children tend to love this one and they normally understand it very well. In other words, it's easier for them than the AI, AY pair. So, what exactly is the magicy and how to teach it? The magicy is one of the many names that we give to a syllable type with the ending structure vowel, consonant, E. The letter E at the end of syllables with this ending structure, this drop, we do not pronounce it. It just serves as a signal for the preceding vowel to say its name. So to teach this one, what's really effective is to start with a CVC word and then we add our magicy at the end and see what happens. So for instance, say we have mad, tap, can. What happens when we add our magicy? Well, mad is magically transformed into made. Tap is magically transformed into tape, and can is magically transformed into cane. As you may have noticed, my personal preference is to use the magicy name when we are explaining this rule. This is because I think this little story of how the letter E is magic and performs these little magic tricks on words works really well with children. But you can of course make up a different story, maybe a story about how bossy the letter is. I've seen other programs calling this big mouthy. So call it whatever you want, it's up to you, but using a story helps children remember the rule. And by the way, another important point here, I wouldn't personally restrict this lesson about the magicy to teaching the long A sound only. I'd also explain how this affects the rest of the vowels. Since this video is all about the long A sound, well, that's why I haven't given you examples of other vowels that were affected by the letter E. One more tactic that we can use to help our children with words with our magicy when we are starting out is using some sort of sign. I'll show you an example of what I mean. Look, this one is taken from our high frequency words flashcards. As you can see, these signs, these symbols are pretty intuitive. They show that the letter E is dropped, we do not pronounce it, and it also influences the way in which we read the previous vowel. I personally really like this strategy, especially with our beginning readers and our struggling readers. In fact, I like it so much that that's the whole idea behind those flashcards I've just shown you. Those signs are there on purpose to make learning to read as easy and intuitive as possible. For many children at the start, it can be really hard when they are confronted with words that have weird rules that sort of contradict what they've learned before. I won't stand any longer on this because if you are interested, there's an entire video on the channel talking about this. I'll leave you a link over here and on the video description. Okay, so let's move on now to spelling option number 3, the letter A. Yes, the letter A on its own can also make the long A sound. Apron, April, acorn, agent, bacon, basic, baby, crazy, gravy, label, lady, lazy, flavor, labor, table, David. Why does the letter A say its name in these words instead of the short A sound? Well, this is because these A's are in what we call open syllables. An open syllable is not closing at the end by a consonant as opposed to closed syllables, which are closing at the end by a consonant. For instance, no versus not, me versus met, a as in a cat, a dog versus at. Okay, I will not stay on this any longer because if you want to learn more about open versus closed syllables, how to divide them, how to teach them, etc., we have an entire video covering exactly that. Again, I'll leave you a link over here and on the video description. Okay, so we've already covered the 3 most common spellings for the long A sound. Let's go through the exceptions or the less common spellings now. EA. The 4 words that you really need to remember here are break, steak, great, yay. And maybe a little sentence to remember them. Great! Steaks break the rule, for instance. EI. There aren't many words with this spelling either. The most common ones your child will bump into are rain, vein, veil, rain, beige, reindeer. EY. This is the EI pair really. Remember, as we've seen before, words do not end with the letter I in English. We use the letter Y instead as a replacement. The words that we need to remember here are hey, they, way, pray, survey, convey, obey, disobey. EIGH. 8, 18, 80, weight, freight, sleigh. A quick note on this one, by the way, we could have included these under the EI spelling as well. Remember rain, vein, veil, reindeer. And tackle GH separately as a silent digraph. We have it in many words such as write, fight, thought. In fact, that is my personal preference. The less spelling options we have for a single sound, the simpler it gets in my opinion. Anyway, since most programs and curriculums talk about the EIGH phonogram as a unit of sound, that is why I also decided to stick to that logic in this video. ET, croquet, ballet. I know this is a truly weird spelling. Why do we spell ballet and croquet like this? Well, these words were borrowed directly from French and the spelling was never changed. AU, gauge. This is the only word I can think of with this spelling, so if you want to, you can probably ignore that altogether. It is very unlikely that your child will bump into this word. Okay, so we've covered a lot of spellings for the same sound. I know, it can totally feel overwhelming, especially if you're a parent seeing all of these for the first time, all of these spellings for a single sound. Wow. Okay, that is why I want to stress out once more the importance of introducing things gradually, strategically, grouping words with the same spelling pattern together in our practice, etc. But I also want to share with you a couple of extra things, a tool that I think can be very powerful, a couple of activities, and a word list with all the different spelling options for the long A's. Okay, let's start with the tool. A phonics dictionary. Let me show you how it goes. Okay, so this is my version of it. So you first have a page summarizing all the different spelling alternatives for a specific sound, in this case the long A sound. And I've put in green the most common spelling options, in yellow the ones that are less common, and in red the ones that are really rare. Then next page over here you have space to write down words that contain the targeted sound by spelling alternative. I'll give you an example of how to use it. Say you're focusing on the A-I-A-Y pair for the long A sound. Okay, you've got maybe a passage like this one. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. Ask your students to, number 1, read the passage and spot the words with a long A sound. Number 2, fill out their spelling dictionary. Number 3, make sure that they know the meaning of words. For instance, rain. Well, that one is pretty obvious. Most kids, if not all kids, will know what the word rain means. Spain. What is it? Do your students know it's a country? Do they know that's the reason why we have to capitalize it? Do they know some interesting facts about this country? Maybe they know someone from that country. Okay, next word, mainly. What is it? Do they know it means something like more than anything else? It actually comes from the word main plus the suffix "ly". Plane, what is it? I'm sure most kids will think we are talking about an actual plane here, and that's really interesting because you can talk about the difference between plane and plane and how in English two words can actually be pronounced the same but spelled differently because they have different meanings. Okay, so I hope you are seeing why I like the idea of having a phonics spelling dictionary. First of all, it helps children have realizations, make connections, spot patterns. Also, since they have compiled these words lists themselves, they can go over them. The words will be familiar, they will be relevant to them, and this will help them remember the words and the spellings more easily. These lists will be more powerful than being given word lists without any context, in my opinion. I know it can look a little bit overwhelming at first, but you obviously don't have to do all the spelling options at the same time. This is a dictionary to complete over time. In fact, you will likely need more than one copy per sound page. Okay, so that was our spelling dictionary. So far it's ready for the long vowel sounds. If you want a copy, I'll leave you a link to download it for free on the video description. Besides, I'll also notify you when the entire spelling dictionary for all the English sounds is done. Probably this one won't be 100% free because it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time, a lot of sounds and spellings, but I'll keep it as affordable as possible, and of course you can always make your own as well. As mentioned before, on the video description I'll also leave you a list of long A words classified by spelling option to help you out, create your own reading passages, etc. And if you want a super comprehensive list, not only for the long A sound, but for everything really, then check out our Phonics Mastery word list. This is part of our paid materials though, but I think it's a real gem, so at least check it out. Okay, so we've already seen our sound spelling dictionary. Let's go with a word sorting activity that can be very powerful. This is a short clip of how to go about it. The target sound was F and not A, but you'll get the idea. These are the words that we're going to sort out, and for this activity I have a very special helper. Okay, can you read these words out loud, please?
Yep. Leaf, say, half, face, photo, rough, fun, soften, cliff, elephant, calf, dolphin, off, tough, often.
Very good. So now you know what to do?
Yeah, but I want to read these out.
Okay. Exactly, that's exactly right. Now it's time to put the words where they belong. So
Okay,
go ahead.
This is gonna be
Finally, another powerful activity is word unscramble, but you present words like this. That is rain. That is Spain. Unlike traditional unscramble games that focus on putting in order the letters in a target word, we actually use the actual graphemes that represent each of the sounds in a word. A useful tool for these unscrambled activities and for phoneme manipulation activities in general are phonogram tiles. You can make your own and then attach some magnetic sheets. You can very cheaply get on Amazon. There are also some good quality made for you options, but unfortunately the best ones, at least to my knowledge, are part of some reading programs. I'm also working on a project right now for unscrambled grapheme games online, but it's too soon to talk about it. I'll keep you posted. Well, I hope you found this video useful. I know it seems like a lot. It is a lot, but little by little it can be done. Okay, so that's it for the long A sound today. For more videos like this one, subscribe, and if you haven't been on this channel before, have a good browse around. We have lots of videos on the topic of how to teach children to read. Bye and see you on the next video.